7 Most Menacing Kids in the World. Bever Brothers. You may have heard of the Menendez brothers, known for their crimes against their parents in the 1990s. But you might not know about the Bever brothers. Robert, 18, and Michael Bever, 16, were teenagers from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, who came from a troubled family. Their parents, David and April Bever, had 5 children total, and the family was described as isolated and dysfunctional. Reports suggest the boys had an interest in violent media and had been planning their actions for some time. On July 22, 2015, Robert and Michael carried out a brutal attack on their family. They stabbed their parents and 3 of their siblings, killing 5 people. Only their 13-year-old sister survived the attack. The brothers initially fled the scene but were later apprehended by police. The brothers claimed they were inspired by the idea of starting a new life and had been influenced by violent movies and video games. Robert, the older brother, was described as the mastermind behind the attack, while Michael participated under his influence. Robert Bever was charged as an adult and pleaded guilty to 5 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Michael Bever was also charged as an adult but later had his charges reduced. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. Eric Smith. Eric Smith was a 13-year-old middle school student in Savona, New York, in 1993. He had a history of being bullied and ostracized by his peers, which reportedly contributed to his emotional struggles. Smith was described as an outcast who had difficulty fitting in. On August 2, 1993, Eric Smith lured 4-year-old Derek Roby into a wooded area near a park. Derek was on his way to a summer camp program. Smith brutally attacked the younger boy, strangling him, beating him with rocks, and sodomizing him with a stick. Derek's body was found later that day, and Smith was quickly identified as a suspect. Eric Smith initially denied involvement but later confessed to the crime. He claimed he didn't know why he committed the act, describing it as an uncontrollable impulse. His confession included graphic details of the attack, which shocked the community and the nation. In 1994, he was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to the maximum term of 9 years to life in prison. Smith was denied parole multiple times over the years, with the parole board citing the brutal nature of the crime and his lack of remorse. Keith Randy Litch. Keith Randy Litchfield was a 17-year-old high school student in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the late 1970s. He came from a troubled family environment, and his younger sister was reportedly being abused by a relative. Distraught and desperate to protect her, Randy asked his mother for permission to buy a weapon to defend his sister. On November 17, 1978, Randy brought a shotgun to Taylor High School, where he was a student. He entered the school library and opened fire, killing 2 students and injuring several others. The victims were Johnny May Clements, 16, and Gary Schoonover, 17. The shooting shocked the community and left many questioning how such a tragedy could occur. Randy was arrested immediately after the shooting. He was charged with 2 counts of murder and multiple counts of attempted murder. During the trial, his defense argued that he was emotionally disturbed and had acted under extreme duress due to the abuse in his family and the bullying he endured. Despite these arguments, Randy was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. Randy Litchfield became eligible for parole after serving 20 years. He was granted parole in 2008, after spending nearly 30 years in prison. His release was controversial, with some believing he had served his time and others feeling that the severity of his crime warranted a longer sentence. Jasmine Richardson. Jasmine Richardson was a 12-year-old girl from Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. She came from what appeared to be a stable and loving family. However, she had become involved in a relationship with Jeremy Steinke, a 23-year-old man who was part of the local goth subculture. Their relationship was highly inappropriate and illegal due to Jasmine's age. On April 23, 2006, Jasmine and Jeremy carried out a horrific plan to murder her family. They broke into the Richardson home in the middle of the night and killed Jasmine's parents, Mark and Deborah Richardson, and her 8-year-old brother, Jacob. The murders were exceptionally brutal, with the victims being stabbed multiple times.
Jasmine and Jeremy claimed they committed the murders so they could be together without interference from her family.
Jasmine had expressed frustration with her parents' rules and restrictions, particularly their disapproval of her relationship with Jeremy. The couple had also been influenced by dark, romanticized ideas of rebellion and violence, which were part of the goth subculture they identified with. Jeremy Steinke was tried as an adult and convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder.
He was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years. Jasmine Richardson, due to her age, was tried under Canada's Youth Criminal Justice Act. She pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder but received a much lighter sentence because of her status as a youth offender. She was given the maximum youth sentence at the time, 10 years, with 6 years of intensive supervision following her release. Jake Evans. Jake Evans was a 17-year-old teenager from Alvarado, Texas.
He lived with his mother, Jamie Evans, and his older sister, Mallory Evans. By all accounts, Jake appeared to be a normal teenager, but he harbored deep-seated anger and resentment toward his family. On October 12, 2012, Jake Evans carried out a premeditated plan to kill his mother and sister. He used a .22 caliber revolver to shoot his mother twice in the head and his sister once in the head while they were watching TV in their living room. Both victims died at the scene. In a chilling confession letter written to the police, Jake expressed that he had been planning the murders for weeks. He cited feelings of anger and frustration with his family, particularly his mother, whom he described as controlling. He also mentioned that he felt no remorse for his actions and that he had considered killing other family members as well. Due to his age, Jake was tried as a juvenile. He pleaded guilty to the charges. In 2013, he was sentenced to 45 years in prison as part of a plea deal. Because he was a minor at the time of the crime, he will be eligible for parole after serving 20 years. William Schultz. William Schultz is a very perilous and disturbed individual. There's no other way to describe him. At 18 years old, William believed that the world was ending and wanted to check off a few items on his bucket list. One of these items was to find out what it felt like to kill someone. On April 26, 2015, William Schultz carried out a premeditated and violent attack. He went to a house, cut the power to disable any security systems, and sneaked inside. Once inside, he went upstairs and found 19-year-old Jordan Elmgrim sleeping. Schultz attacked Elmgrim, resulting in severe injuries. The motive for the attack appears to have been personal and premeditated. Schultz had a history of disturbing behavior and had reportedly been stalking or fixated on Elmgrim. This fixation escalated into a violent confrontation. Schultz was arrested shortly after the attack. He was charged with attempted murder and other related offenses. During the trial, it was revealed that Schultz had planned the attack in advance, demonstrating a high level of premeditation. He was convicted and sentenced to a significant prison term, reflecting the severity of his actions.